What if the vegetables you trust the most, the ones you've been told are heart healthy your entire life, are now quietly putting your heart at risk? This isn't a myth. It's a reality that most seniors don't discover until it's too late. You see, after the age of 60, your body doesn't process food the same way. Your heart becomes more sensitive. Your medications become more precise. And certain everyday vegetables, yes, even the so-called superfoods, can trigger hidden interactions that quietly raise your blood pressure, interfere with blood thinners, ignite inflammation, or even allow harmful bacteria to take root in your bloodstream. In today's video, we're going to expose 5 common vegetables that might be silently sabotaging your heart, and more importantly, what you can do about it. These aren't extreme or exotic foods. They're probably sitting in your fridge right now. If you care about your heart, your longevity, and your independence, this is the video you can't afford to skip. Stick with me until the end, because we'll also share 6 truly heart-safe vegetables that can help restore your health, protect your medication's effects, and keep your heart beating strong without sacrificing flavor or joy. Let's dive in, because what you don't know could be what's holding you back from living your healthiest years yet. First, red chili peppers. Why spicy food could be stressing your aging here? Spicy food is a source of joy for many. It brings flavor, warmth, and a sense of tradition to every meal. But once you pass 60, your heart may no longer respond kindly to the fire on your plate. Red chili peppers, especially the hot, concentrated varieties, contain capsaicin, a compound that stimulates the sympathetic nervous system. While this may boost metabolism in younger adults, for seniors, it initiates a chain reaction that includes elevated adrenaline, faster heart rate, and narrowed blood vessels. In a younger body, these changes are short-lived and manageable. But for an aging cardiovascular system, already battling arterial stiffness and reduced elasticity, this temporary stim. What many older adults don't realize is that this isn't just about discomfort. Regular consumption of spicy foods can lead to sustained increases in blood pressure and occasional heart palpitations. Over time, it may also contribute to low-grade inflammation in the blood vessels, weakening their structural integrity and increasing the risk of heart-related incidents. It's not uncommon for seniors to experience tightness in the chest, restlessness, or a pounding pulse. After this doesn't mean you need to ban all spice from your life. What it means is that your body is asking for a gentler approach. You can still enjoy flavorful meals just without the added cardiac burden. Try replacing red chili with milder options like paprika, ginger, garlic, or citrus zest. These ingredients bring warmth and complexity without overstimulating your cardiovascular system. Cooking with fresh herbs like rosemary, basil, or oregano also adds rich taste without any harmful effects on blood pressure or heart rate. At this stage in life, your meals should bring comfort, not conflict. Your heart needs steadiness, not spikes. The pleasure of a spicy dish is never worth the risk of a heart that beats too fast or struggles to keep pace. Listen to your body, adjust your habits, and season your meals in ways that bring both satisfaction and safety. True flavor doesn't require fire, it just requires wisdom. If you liked what we shared in the first part, comment with the number 1 below. If you're still unsure or disagree, comment with the number 0 and tell us why. We're here to listen, and we'll do our best to give you thoughtful answers tailored to your situation. And before we move forward, let me gently remind you, if even one idea in this video has sparked a thought, eased a worry, or made you feel a little more seen, there's still so much more ahead. If this journey resonates with you, please take a moment to click the subscribe button. It means the world to us and helps this wisdom reach more hearts who truly need it. And I'd love to hear from you. What part of this message speaks to your own experience? Drop a comment below and let us learn from each other, because here, every voice matters. Second, pickled cucumbers. Pickled cucumbers, or pickles, might seem harmless. They're small, tangy, crunchy, and often viewed as a healthier alternative to chips or processed snacks. But for older adults, especially those over 60 with heart conditions or a history of high blood pressure, This salty favorite can pose a serious threat. The problem lies not in the cucumber itself, but in the brine, an intense mix of salt, vinegar, and preservatives used during pickling. Just a few slices of pickles can contain over 1,000 milligrams of sodium, which is nearly 2/3 of the recommended daily sodium intake for seniors. And for people who consume them regularly without checking labels, this hidden salt load can quietly push blood pressure levels into dangerous territory. Excess sodium doesn't just raise your blood pressure temporarily, it retains fluid in your bloodstream, making your heart work harder to circulate that extra volume. Over time, this added pressure stiffens the arteries, increases your risk of stroke, and can lead to congestive heart failure. Unlike greasy or fatty foods that carry an obvious health warning, pickles tend to fly under the radar. Many seniors who think they're eating clean, cutting fried foods, drinking more water, even exercising, don't realize that the small pile of pickles on their plate may be sabotaging all their efforts. What makes this even more concerning is that aging kidneys become less efficient at processing sodium. This means the same amount of salt that your body handled just fine in your 30s or 40s now lingers longer, doing more damage with each serving. And it's not just pickled cucumbers. Canned vegetables, jarred olives, and even store-bought soups often hide high sodium content behind misleading labels like low-calorie or heart-healthy. The good news is that you don't have to give up flavor to protect your heart. There are smarter alternatives. Choose fresh cucumbers with a splash of lemon juice, or try low-sodium homemade pickles where you control the salt content. You can also season your food with herbs, garlic, and vinegar in moderation, instead of relying on salt. The goal isn't to strip away enjoyment from your meals, it's to reclaim control over what goes into your body and give your heart the best chance to keep going strong. In this stage of life, subtle changes in your plate can mean profound changes in your health. A simple shift away from high-sodium condiments like pickles could reduce your blood pressure, ease strain on your heart, and help you feel more energetic and stable every single day. If you liked what we shared in the second part, comment with the number 2 below. If you're still unsure or disagree, comment with the number 0 and tell us why. We're here to listen, and we'll do our best to give you thoughtful answers tailored to your situation. Third, spinach. For decades, spinach has been hailed as one of the healthiest vegetables you can eat. A nutrient powerhouse loaded with iron, fiber, and antioxidants. But as with many things in nutrition, the full story isn't always so simple, especially when you're over 60 and taking medications to protect your heart. While spinach can still be part of a healthy diet, it carries a specific risk that many seniors are never warned about. The culprit is vitamin K, a compound found abundantly in spinach that plays a crucial role in blood clotting. For most people, this isn't a concern, but for anyone on blood-thinning medications like warfarin, which are often prescribed after strokes, heart attacks, or to treat atrial fibrillation, high levels of vitamin K can dangerously interfere with the intended effect of these drugs. What happens is this. While your medication is working to thin your blood and prevent deadly clots, the excess vitamin K from a spinach-heavy diet starts to reverse that effect, quietly, invisibly. You may think your medication is doing its job, but your blood is actually thickening, making clots more likely to form. This can lead to strokes, pulmonary embolisms, or other cardiovascular events, all while you feel perfectly fine and unaware of the conflict inside your body. And unlike junk food, which comes with obvious warning signs, spinach seems innocent, even virtuous. That's why it's so dangerous. It hides behind a reputation of health while posing a very real, very specific threat to older adults on certain medications. The solution isn't to ban spinach from your plate entirely. It's about consistency and communication. If you're going to eat spinach regularly, it must be in predictable, measured amounts, not sudden binges of smoothies or oversized salads. And just as importantly, your doctor needs to know. Medication doses can be adjusted to account for steady vitamin K intake, but if your diet fluctuates wildly, so will your blood's ability to stay within safe clotting levels. Cooking spinach instead of eating it raw may also reduce some of the vitamin K content while improving digestion, which becomes more sluggish with age. Ultimately, spinach is not the enemy, but misunderstanding it is. After 60, even the healthiest foods need to be approached with deeper awareness. What worked wonders for you in your 40s might now clash with the realities of medication, metabolism, and a more delicate circulatory system. So keep your spinach, but eat it wisely, because every bite should protect your heart, not compromise it. If you liked what we shared in the third part, comment with the number 3 below. If you're still unsure or disagree, comment with the number 0 and tell us why. We're here to listen, and we'll do our best to give you thoughtful answers tailored to your situation. Fourth, raw garlic and heart medications. Garlic has earned its reputation over centuries as a healing food, praised for its ability to support heart health, reduce cholesterol, and improve blood circulation. For many seniors, raw garlic has become a daily ritual, crushed into salads, blended into smoothies, or even swallowed whole like medicine. However, what few realize is that in certain contexts, especially for older adults on cardiovascular medications, raw garlic can shift from being therapeutic to potentially harmful. This is particularly true when garlic is consumed in large, raw quantities while also taking anticoagulants such as warfarin or aspirin. Garlic naturally has blood-thinning properties, and when combined with prescription blood thinners, it can intensify their effects to a dangerous degree. The result of this interaction can be internal bleeding, nosebleeds that don't stop easily, bruising without cause, or even a significant drop in blood pressure. For someone whose cardiovascular system is already fragile, this excessive thinning of the blood can interrupt the heart's ability to receive adequate oxygen and nutrients. In some cases, blood pressure may fall too low, leading to dizziness, fatigue, and an increased risk of falls. It's a classic example of how even something natural can interfere with modern medicine and create unintended consequences. The body's ability to metabolize and respond to certain compounds changes with age, and this means that a food once viewed as universally beneficial must now be consumed with caution. Raw garlic also has the potential to irritate the digestive tract, especially in those with sensitive stomach linings or acid reflux, which are common conditions among older adults. The intense concentration of sulfur compounds in raw garlic may disrupt digestion, causing bloating or discomfort that further strains the body's regulatory systems. In moderation and when cooked, garlic retains many of its benefits without carrying the same risks. Cooking garlic reduces its potency slightly but makes it far more compatible with an aging digestive and circulatory system. The key message here isn't to fear garlic, but to approach it with awareness and balance. Seniors who want to enjoy garlic for its flavor and health-promoting properties should opt for cooked preparations, and always inform their healthcare provider if they are adding any supplement-like doses to their diet. When it comes to your heart, small details matter, especially when your medications are finely tuned to protect you. By understanding how raw garlic interacts with your system, you empower yourself to make choices that support, not sabotage, your well-being. If you liked what we shared in the fourth part, comment with the number 4 below. If you're still unsure or disagree, comment with the number 0 and tell us why. We're here to listen, and we'll do our best to give you thoughtful answers tailored to your situation. Fifth, raw sprouts, the healthy food that may be harming seniors. Hearts among the foods praised for their freshness and vitality, raw sprouts often top the list. Their vibrant, crunchy texture and nutrient density make them seem like the ideal health food, especially for seniors looking to eat clean and plant-based. However, the truth behind these innocent-looking greens is far more complex. Raw sprouts, such as alfalfa, bean, or mung sprouts, grow in warm and moist environments, precisely the same conditions that support the rapid proliferation of dangerous bacteria like E. coli, salmonella, and listeria. While these bacteria may pose minor inconvenience to a young adult with a strong immune system, for someone over 60, the consequences can be far more serious. The irony is painful. Many seniors reach for raw sprouts as a healthier alternative to processed foods, thinking they're making the right choice. But despite their natural appeal, raw sprouts are among the top foodborne illness risks for older adults. Cooking them, Even lightly steaming or sautéing can kill most harmful bacteria without destroying the sprout's core nutritional benefits. Unfortunately, this step is often skipped in favor of adding them raw to salads or sandwiches, especially in health-conscious routines that prioritize raw, unprocessed ingredients. It's important to understand that food safety is not just a matter of hygiene, it's a matter of vulnerability. As the body ages, so too must our definition of healthy eating evolve. What was once safe and invigorating can now be destabilizing and dangerous. Seniors can still enjoy the nutritional value of sprouts, but they must be treated with the same caution one would apply to undercooked meat or unwashed produce. A simple precaution, like cooking sprouts before consumption, can drastically reduce risk and preserve the heart's strength. The heart cannot heal if it is constantly burdened by unnecessary battles. At this stage of life, food should not be a threat hidden in plain sight. By removing raw sprouts from the list of everyday raw vegetables and choosing safer methods of preparation, you allow your heart and your entire body the calm, stable environment it needs to function at its best. If you liked what we shared in the fifth part, comment with the number 5 below. If you're still unsure or disagree, comment with the number 0 and tell us why. We're here to listen, and we'll do our best to give you thoughtful answers tailored to your situation. Sixth, 6 vegetables that truly support heart health. After 60, after learning which vegetables may quietly sabotage your heart health, it's natural to ask, what can I eat with confidence? What foods actually support heart strength, reduce risk, and enhance longevity in older age? The answer does not lie in extreme diets, superfood fads, or one-size-fits-all regimens. Instead, it lies in a quiet, consistent embrace of real, whole vegetables that match your heart's changing needs after 60. Your cardiovascular system now requires support that goes beyond basic nutrition. It needs foods that reduce inflammation, balance blood pressure, improve vascular elasticity, and work in harmony with any medication you may be taking. Steamed vegetables like broccoli and kale provide a gentle, digestible source of fiber and antioxidants while minimizing the risk of interfering with medications. Cooking these vegetables lightly breaks down certain compounds that can be irritating or problematic in raw form. Root vegetables such as sweet potatoes and carrots are rich in potassium and beta-carotene, nutrients that help regulate blood pressure and support the integrity of blood vessel walls. Legumes like lentils and green beans offer plant-based protein, slow-digesting carbohydrates, and magnesium, all of which play essential roles in maintaining steady heart rhythms and preventing hypertension. Cooked tomatoes are another standout. Rich in lycopene, a powerful antioxidant, they have been linked to reduced arterial stiffness and lower levels of LDL cholesterol. When consumed as part of a warm, balanced meal, these vegetables not only nourish the heart, but also provide emotional comfort, a factor often overlooked in clinical nutrition, but profoundly important for long-term adherence and quality of life. Equally critical is how you prepare your vegetables. For seniors, the digestive system slows and becomes more sensitive to irritation and bloating. Light steaming, roasting, or gentle sautéing with olive oil allows nutrients to be absorbed more efficiently without overwhelming the digestive tract. This approach avoids the risks of bacterial contamination from raw produce, reduces excessive vitamin concentrations that may conflict with medications, and minimizes strain on the kidneys and liver. The goal isn't to complicate eating, it's to simplify it with intention. A plate that includes a cup of steamed greens, a portion of orange root vegetables, and a handful of beans or lentils, prepared with herbs instead of salt, does far more than fill your stomach. It restores balance, improves energy, and gives your heart the nutritional environment it needs to beat with strength and stability. If you liked what we shared in the 6th part, comment with the number 6 below. If you're still unsure or disagree, comment with the number 0 and tell us why. We're here to listen, and we'll do our best to give you thoughtful answers tailored to your situation. Your heart has carried you through decades of love, loss, laughter, and lessons. It has been strong for you every single day. Now it's asking for your attention, not in fear, but in wisdom. The vegetables you choose, the way you prepare them, and how you honor your body today can change the course of your tomorrow. You don't need drastic change. You just need mindful choices, consistently. Cut back on what harms you, embrace what heals you, and let each meal become an act of care, not confusion. Your next heartbeat is a gift. Protect it. If today's video helped you see your diet in a new light, leave a comment below with the word balance. Let's support each other, one heart-healthy habit at a time. And remember, it's never too late to eat smarter, live longer, and love yourself deeper. If this video spoke to you in any way, if it helped you understand your body a little better, or made you feel just a bit more hopeful about aging well, then I'd love for you to join this growing community. Please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone you care about. You never know who might need these words today. And most importantly, I want to hear from you. What part of this video resonated most with you? Leave a comment below. I read everyone, and your story might just inspire someone else. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of Daily Elder Advice. Until next time, stay well, stay wise, and sleep peacefully.